All right, I finally got my studio set up so that I have a more permanent setup of my camera on a stand, and hopefully now that I'm taping in my studio, you can see both my painting, my brushes, my water control station as I like to call it, and my palette. So it should give you a better overview of how I paint, so you can actually see when I mix my colors and things like that. This is part 3 of this fall landscape that we've been working on. And the 2 first tapings was taped in my classroom, and as usual, it's rare that I actually get to the completion of a painting in the classroom. I get to teach them all the different techniques, but rarely do I get a finished painting by the time we're done. So I have piles and piles of paintings that are unfinished, and I go through them once in a while and try and look at them and see which ones I feel motivated to finish. But let's finish this one. I already showed you one of the aspen trunks, how I would do that. And I'm going to show you a couple more, and I have loosened a little bit of the edges on some of these branches. Anytime you take masking fluid off, it's going to be, there's going to be hard edges that you need to loosen. And I still have some work to do in here, and I'll show you a little bit of how I'm going to do that. But let me just show you one more aspen trunk. I'm going to choose this one here, and I'm just going to put a little bit of water inside, and here I just happen to use a flat brush. Since I had it in my hand. That's basically my scrubber brush. So, there. It's not really a scrubber brush because the hairs here are pretty soft, but they're short. So they give me a little bit of scrubber action without damaging the paper. So I'm going to use this one, which is my favorite brush. It's the dagger brush. And I'll use that one. Has a nice tip, holds a decent amount of water, and I already mixed a shadow color, which is French ultramarine blue, grayed down with a touch of burnt sienna. And I'm just going to run it down. Whoops, I should stick to the shadow side of the tree. That's why I put an arrow up here, to keep myself on track. And there we have it. A little bit of that, and then I'm going to just loosen the edge there, and let's just do it up here and here, and just clean, we'll brush out, loosen the edge here, so, and also a little bit here, there. And what I will do with these over here, they are too bright, because they're further away than these, and I can't do step 2 on those. I'm just going to go in and tone them down a little bit. I've already worked on a few of them. So I'm just dragging a little bit of that shadow color over. It's not because I want them to go away, but I just want them to kind of fade back a little bit into the background. So there's some of that going on here. Let's see, just tone them down a little bit. And there will also be shadows cast on them in here because there's a lot of foliage going on. And some of these lines I'm not really crazy about. I'm going to fix them when I do my final touches on the foliage here. But for now I can just kind of tone them down. And it's amazing what just a little tiny bit can do. Whoops, that was too much. If it's too much, you just dab it off right away. And I could actually also do that on some of those up here. Get them toned down. And so, a few of those. So there's a lot of these little things going on that you have to do. They're just time consuming and probably very boring for you to watch. So now that I put the shadow side on the trunks and I toned down some of these little trunks that are peeping through, I need to wait for that to dry, and in the meantime I could work on my rocks. So I'm going to continue with that, and let's do this one here. There was 2 rocks here. I put a little bit of water kind of towards the top. The light's coming from this side, so we have this side of the rocks. They're all going to be the lightest, and I am going to use a mixture of French ultramarine and burnt sienna, and I usually turn it around so I can paint in here. Put a little bit of that on the shadow side. It's very thick, probably need a little bit more water, don't want it that dark. There's that, and we have to remember the bottoms are flat. And now I can put in a little bit more of the burnt sienna. So I'm going up here. Just want to make sure that there's a little difference between these 2 rocks. And I can actually also put in, I'm going to put in a little bit of the cobalt blue. That's going to make it a little bit more gray, but not darken it very much. Alright, rinse out my brush, wipe it on the towel, on the paper towel, and then I'm just dragging out a little bit of that color into here so I retain the light top. That looks pretty good, I think. Maybe I'll darken it a little tiny bit down here. There. Dab in a little bit. Alright, I think that'll work. You can see there's 1 or 2 little white sparkles that I don't want. And you know, you can always lift out a little bit if you feel that you got it too dark. But I think this is good. See, 1 more little white sparkle there. Take that away. Alright, so that went pretty well. Let's do this other rock here. So there's actually also a rock behind it, so I'm going to put a little bit of water inside. I don't know if you can see. There we have it. And again, I'm just going to start out with this mixture I did previously, made of French ultramarine blue and burnt sienna. It's a little heavy on the blue side, and it's very thick. That's for my darks. That way I can get those in quickly down here and just bring them up to where they hit the water, and I get that nice soft edge. And then without rinsing it out, I'm just gonna rinsing out my brush. I'm just dabbing in a little bit of the burnt sienna, just kind of vary the color a little bit. I like to mix my colors primarily on the paper, and I can actually also take a little bit of the cobalt blue there, and then I'm going to rinse out my brush, wipe it, and it's just damp now, and then I can go in and kind of drag out some of this pigment so that I get a nice light top of the rock. There, looks pretty good. Maybe a little bit more burnt sienna down here. And might take just a little bit of the cobalt also to gray it down a little bit more. There, I think that's good. And again, just get rid of those white sparkles. There we have it. That's a pretty good rock. And then we have some little rocks back here. So, tiny little bit of water inside. Dip into my burnt sienna French ultramarine blue mixture. Put that on here. Get a little bit more of the burnt sienna, just dabbing that in, depositing that in that rock there. Rinse out my brush, dab it on the towel, and drag it out. It's kind of like a long flat rock here. You want to make sure you have variety in your rocks, so they're not little potatoes that are kind of, you know, sitting in your water here. Alright, just dabbed in a little bit more dark there. Okie dokie. And I'm going to continue painting the other rocks the exact same way, and then I will get back to you. Okay, so here I'm holding it a little bit closer so you can see, so the rocks are painted. And now I'm going to work on those aspen trunks. Going to be next. And I'm using the exact same mixture for that as, sorry, I have to adjust my camera a little bit here. As I used for the rocks. For the dark areas of the aspen trees, I am using a very concentrated mix of French ultramarine blue and burnt sienna. I think you can see everything now. And I have a nice puddle of that up here. Probably need to make a little bit more burnt sienna. I have already mixed my little puddles of the colors I need, so I can get this going in a speedy manner. I usually find it easiest if I turn my painting on the side for these things, and so I have my brush loaded, and it should hopefully give me some nice marks. I'm just going to test it out here. Yeah, I think it's maybe still a little too damp. So there we have it. So just a few dry brush marks across the trunks here. Make sure you don't get them too regular. That's the hardest part, is getting things irregular. So I'm just, now it's working just perfect the way I like it. And a little bit up these trunks and little branches that are peeking through the foliage. So I'm skipping around a little bit, just that helps me get things not too regular. It's nice if you can get some of these things broken through. It's all about a little bit up here, a little bit there. And so you can see that's what I'm going to be doing on all these little ones. Break them up a little bit with these dark markings. Here and there, there and here. Random. As random as I can get. Okay, so I did the markings on the aspen trees, and I'm going to leave it for now. And now I'm going to work on this area because I left that kind of unfinished, and I want to say that there are some rocks there. And so I'm going to use my rock color and probably my credit card to kind of scrape in some little shapes that's going to look like rocks, we hope. So I'm just loading my brush with that French ultramarine burnt sienna mixture, and I'm just getting some darks in here. Since the light's coming from here, it'll hit a little bit on the tops, but they're going to be somewhat in the shadow because, you know, the bushes and the trees and everything, they're going to cast some shadows over them. Put a little bit more French ultramarine in some of them. So I just want to have some little, you know, rocks right there at the little edge of this piece of land sticking into there. See, that looks fine for now. And then let's see if I grab my credit card, and I'm gonna use just a little bit of the side like there. These are small, so they're not gonna be, they're small rocks, so you know, I'm not gonna use a big area of the side. As they come closer here, I could make them a little bit bigger. That's, you know, for perspective reasons. And I think just this is going to work out just fine there. For right now that looks okay, and then what I'm going to do is I'm probably going to go with kind of a little bit of a shadow color while it's still damp here. I'm going to kind of pull out some of that dark pigment I deposited. I have a little tiny bit of a toned down cobalt on my brush too, and just trying to get some little uneven shadows going on here, behind here. These rocks, it's going to help push them out. Rinse my brush and just evaluate what I got going on. I think that worked out pretty well, actually. So I think I'm going to leave that. You can see here what happened. Can you see it? So there. That works out just fine, I think. Maybe the line is a little too straight. Vary it a little bit here. There's, all sorts of weeds and who knows what down here. It's not about that area, I just don't want it to look strange. There. I think that's good. And now we need to work on that area. And that's going to be with our warm colors. So there's no getting around it. I got to work on this area. The first thing I think I'm going to do is, right now with the colors I have going on here, you really cannot tell what's in front and what's behind, even though I did break it up a couple of places. But I got to do something that can be difficult to do, but I'm going to do it. Let's see here. That could go a little bit out like this. And then like this. So I'm putting a little bit of water inside here, just dabbing it around while I get my guts up. So I'm going to go in with a little bit of cobalt, very thin, and it can even be toned down a little bit with a burnt sienna. So it's just a grayed down cobalt, super watery, and I am just going to have to go in and tone this area down. And I do that by putting a little tiny bit of cobalt on. Especially down here at the bottom. Of course, we already talked about it's going to be a little bit darker down here because, it doesn't get as much light. And this side, first of all, it's on the edge of my painting. And it's also on the shadow side, since we decided that the light source is coming from over there. So I'm just going to have to tone it down. And by now I'm going to loosen the edge. Just dab in a little bit here. There. So now this is not quite as bright as the other side is. I like it. These things, are a little hard to get yourself to do, especially if you kind of love that area. But by doing it with a little bit of cobalt, I'm just dabbing out because I want it to create that edge there. And if it can be a little bit more irregular, it would be great. I think already I pushed it back a little tiny bit, and you can see it's still wet. So I'll have to wait for it to dry. Actually, maybe I won't have to wait for it to dry, because while it's still wet, I could go in and work it a little bit more. So since this is wet, why don't I just get to it? I'll take a little bit of burnt sienna, maybe tone it down a hint with a little bit of cobalt, and then I'm going to go in and dab in a little bit here, rinse out my brush, loose the edge, So now it's definitely separated, and maybe even a little bit more of that shadow color just down here. Maybe a little bit more greenish, that's fine. And clean out my brush, make sure I don't get one of those ghost shadows there. Don't want that. All right, that's already better, I think. Can you see now? This is in front, this is behind. That's what we want to say. Okie dokie, so now I'm going to take my spray bottle, and you can also splatter. If you don't have a spray bottle that'll do these little splatter patterns, I'm going to put a bunch of those in here because I want to beef this side up a little bit, make it brighter. Can you see? So these kinds of dots there. Can you see I don't know if you can see it in the camera, but you might just have to trust me on it. So let's take some more of the beautiful transparent yellow. Dab, dab. And I'm just going to dab in as if I've had too much coffee, which I haven't today, and put a little bit of this, a little bit of shadow on here, a little bit of shadow on here, and actually maybe even a little bit of the red, and just trying to make it brighter. And you know, on this side I want to make it brighter, but this side is where the light is. So I can also kind of divide up here. Rinse it out. Make sure we kind of loosen the edges. A little bit up there. And I don't want to lose that this edge is a lot lighter than the one here. So I'm just doing all these little things, and can even, let's make a bright orange, just more yellow, just brighten it up. And a little bit in here, just trying to divide those spaces up a little bit, not too hard edged, and organic, nice and organic. That's what we're after. Let's see how that works. I think that's already a lot better. There's that. There's a little light one that's in behind there. All right. Can you see how that is beginning to do something? Okay, so let's see if I do something similar over here where it's a little bit more subdued. So I'm going to do burnt sienna, just grade down a little bit. So let's see, let's just start maybe in here. Get a little separation here. And you always want to make sure that you lose one side of the edge, and don't go too far. This here might be a little too far, but I think it's okay. And I'm already seeing another area that could work, like put a little bit darker in there. There is that. And let's see. Make sure we don't get any of those ghost lines. Maybe if I put a little tiny bit in there. There's that. And I see one more. So this is one of those things you might have to look at your painting a number of times for you to kind of figure out what the heck's going on. And there I did it with a little bit of a darker burnt sienna, toned down. And then now comes the important part, that is that I make sure I lose that line and don't have anything too defined. So there's that. Yep. And here could have a little bit like that going up. There. And a little bit more. Maybe in here, just a hint. And lose the edge. That's the important part. Lose the edge. Okay. Yeah, it's beginning to look a lot better, I think. Let's not have it connect there too much. Again, you know, you don't want to have too defined edges, and so you want to break them up. That's really important. Can you see? Slowly but surely I'm kind of breaking up those large foliage areas into some smaller, where you can kind of get the idea that one tree isn't behind another tree, that kind of stuff. And actually I think it would be nice, since there's some trunks that are, looks like they are further into the woods there, I think probably I should tone them back a little bit here, and that would help me also bring this one out even more. And so just a little bit. There. Yeah, that works. And see here. Trying to split this up just a little bit. Okay, I'll leave that alone for now. Then we need to work on our reflections. We already did them once, but now that we got the rocks in, I am feeling the urge to bring some more reflections down from the rocks. So, you know, I think we talked about it already. Reflections go straight down towards you. So I'm just putting some water in very gently, because I don't want to disturb the color that's underneath. I don't know if you can see it. And then I'm going to take a little bit of that mixture that I did for the rocks, French ultramarine blue and burnt sienna, and then just kind of drag it down. Turn it around so I can drag it down there. And I'm going to take a little tiny bit of the burnt sienna. Of course, there's a couple of places where this rock has some of that burnt sienna. There we have it. And just drag it down to disappear behind that. All right, so there's one reflection. And now I'm going to clean up my brush, squeeze out all the water, have a nice sharp edge, and I just want to drag in that reflection and maybe drag out one here. There. I think that looks nice. Yeah, that's good. There'll be a little bit down here. This barely worth it. Just going to drag it down like that. It's going to disappear under the mat anyway. And then here we have one that's a little bit more brownish. Dragging that down. I didn't even bother wetting that one. Such a little area. And just for good measure, pull out a little reflection there. Damn it. Okay, and we also have this rock there. This rock behind here. Just put a little bit of water in. That's quite dark. But remember, reflections are paler than what they are reflecting, so there. Just that one. And move over here. Put a little bit of, it's best if, I think it's best if you put a little bit of water in first, just so it'll flow. And let's see. Oops. More burnt shimmer there. And then actually more cobalty blue. And right away, going to clean brush, just lift out reflections a little bit. There. Just a hint of it, and then over here we have there. Tap that out. We have it. And you know, if you don't get the reflections in when it's still wet, you just scrub a little bit, and it's gonna lift out the colors just fine if you need a little bit more reflections after everything's dry. And this is also, you know, you can, like I have some little white sparkles here where they're not very helpful. Just go in and just kind of fix some of the edges there. Okay. Yeah, we're getting there. I think that's good enough. Right. All right. So I feel I need to beef up this area a little bit because, you know, that's going to be my focal area. So I have Antwerp mixed with a little bit of quinacridone gold and French ultramarine blue on my brush. And I'm just going in to find the edges here of some of these bushes, and careful around the trunks of the trees. And I'm just depositing a little bit of pigment around those areas. Make it a nice uneven edge as much as I can. And then I'm going to grab another brush and I'm going to turn my painting on the side just because it's easier for me to work on it this way. And then with a damp brush, I'm just going to pull out that really dark color that I deposited, dark green color, so that it can blend into the colors I have already in here. I just wanted to really darken it at the bottom. So I think that's going to be necessary to really say that this is the focal area. So there. Now already, I'm trying to get my darkest darks against my lightest lights here. That's really what I'm doing. And the most intricate shapes, most details, and the most interest. So you draw the eye of the viewer over here. And now I'm going in and I'm dabbing a little bit of these dark spots in here because this foliage, you know, it's not solid, it's see-through. So there'll be some of those areas showing up through the bushes here. All right, so that's pretty okay. And then I have to wash that out. And then I think I need to just define. Maybe I need a little bit. I think I might need a little bit more, just kind of orangey yellow. So I'm just taking my transparent yellow and a little bit of the red into it, so to create a nice orange. And want to brighten this up a little bit, this area. Maybe even up here. And again, rinse out my brush and then kind of loose the edge. Just trying to bring a little bit more interest to this area. That's what I'm trying to do. All right, and while that is wet, I should go in and kind of I'm trying to make a good color that will work. Here, I think, is a good color. So I'm going to go in and put some real darks in here, a couple of places. And fade it out. Just trying to break up some of these little areas without being too specific. I don't really honestly know 100% what's going on there, but there. And this is up towards the edge, so we don't want to go too crazy there. And behind here, okay, now I see. Behind here would be really good if we could get something a little bit darker. And a little bit here. And I'm going to put a little bit of that on the other side, just because it's never good to have something stuck on one side of like a trunk or a tree or house or whatever it is, and not have a little repeat of it on the other side. So I'm going to be aware of that. Okay, I think that's pretty good. So now we have that area broken up, and I want to tone down this area, because now we're getting out towards the, on the side of the paper. So of our painting, so we don't want anything. You never want anything too interesting at the very edge of your painting. And I'm also thinking that should apply over here. So I'm just kind of taking a toned down burnt sienna, and I'm just going to put that in here. just, to push that area back a little bit. Might even push it a little bit more down here. And just to get a nice kind of foliage edge, I'm just going to spray into it a little bit. Dab out there. So that way I push back that area a little bit. And so that means that this part belongs to the front trunks. The other part is those trees that are behind. Might even darken it a little bit more there to really get the point across. There. Okay. I think it's getting close to time to evaluate. I just see a couple of more little spots that needs a little help. So here, I don't like that. I was set a little bit of a line there. I don't like that from my masking. I didn't think that was super great. So I'm going to just try to make that a little obscured by breaking it up. Break it up a little bit more. I want to make sure I don't get it too bright out there. Remember, we just toned it down, so I need to bring it back out again since we pushed it back there. So now this is nitty-gritty fine-tuning. Just finding a few more areas where I feel I could split it up a little bit. Here. And these little areas are going to be very, very helpful in saying that the foliage is, has volume, and some little clumps are behind other clumps and some are in front. And so I'm just trying to find areas where that would be visually pleasing. You can doctor around with this for hours if you feel like it. I'm going to call it quits pretty soon. Sometimes less is more. Overdoing these things is, not a good thing. You always want to make sure that you don't go too far. A little bit at a time, evaluate, and then, if you feel you need some more, do that, but don't overdo it. See if I can get a little dry brushing here to indicate some of these bottom of the weeds. Yeah. There's that. Okay. I think I'm going to call it quits. And last but not least, we are going to just cast a little bit of a shadow. And I will do it French ultramarine blue, grayed down, kind of grayish greenish. I don't want it too dark. I think it'll be helpful to have Just a little indication of these shadows from the trees. There. And that should pretty much do it. Over there I'm not gonna, because they're not gonna be casting shadows over the water and all that stuff. Okay, we'll call this a day. Here you have it. Let me just make sure you can see it. There. I think that's a good little impression of fall. Alrighty, thank you for watching and see you soon.